A lot of people know about roller derby through Whip It. Like,
Whip It came out and everybody wanted to play roller derby again.
I watched Whip It when I was a teenager, and I thought it was so cool. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, and it was always in the back of my mind, like I'd always think like, I wonder if I could do that one day.
I had just started university, this was a very long time ago now, and one of the people on my course recommended that I watch the movie Whip It, because she was like, you will definitely like this movie. And I watched it and I was like, this is the greatest sport I have ever seen. I have to play it immediately.
So like we had been kind of, bumbling along, figuring things out, learning the sport. And then in 2011, that's when Whip It came out. And that's when it came back into like the public view. And that's really when Terminal City really hit its height. We had 2,000 fans come and watch a game, and we had sponsors, and it was it was a really cool thing to be a part of.
In the height of it, we were operating on a budget of a couple of $100,000. Because we would have like 6 or 8 games a year that would make 25 grand, right? It was busy and there was lots of people. So like we were a league of about 150 people at that time. So it was amazing and beautiful to be a part of that, right? Like skating at Kerrisdale, a sellout audience of like 2,500 people with a video screen doing instant replays after. It's amazing, right? Like I'm so lucky that I got to play when roller derby was like that here in town.
2011 was also the year of the first Roller Derby World Cup. Was very fortunate to get selected to play for Team Canada Roller Derby, which was pretty cool, seeing as I had never been on a team sport in my life before. I was not an athletic kid at school, and I really sucked at other team sports. To suddenly be on like this national team was kind of insane. When I started in roller derby, we would, it was halftime, we'd go outside to the parking lot and have tequila shots, like, and then the other half of the group would like take smoke breaks. Like, that was roller derby, right? When I first started, and very much like it was that kind of space. Yeah, I mean, the World Cup was just this crazy, it changed a lot of things, I think, for a lot of people in the sport, because it brought together the competitive people and the people that really saw that this could be an athletic sport, and what would this sport look like if you trained like an athlete for it. So going off and doing Team Canada, we brought basically everything that we learned from that experience of doing the World Cup back to Terminal City, and that's when the All-Stars really changed. That's when we became serious. That's when we had goal-setting sessions of like, where do we want to be? We like really came together as a team, and then that became really beautiful to be part of, because we've gone from this like fragmented, like pretty intensely competing against each other to, again, building this new thing together. We had a phrase for our goals, which was strive for 25. And our goal was to make it into the top 25 of WFTDA. It was to raise $25,000 to pay for our travel for the year.
Were you successful in hitting all those 25s?
I'm pretty sure we didn't hit it the first year. It was definitely a lofty goal. I think at that point we were in like the 80s or something like that of WFTDA. I think 2 or 3 years later, I think the highest ranking that we got was number 18 in the world, which was pretty cool at the time, because that was the time when it was very competitive in roller derby. However, it definitely caused friction in the rest of the league, because now the spotlight had moved. Now the spotlight had moved from the house teams to this all-star team. And the all-star team was the one that was getting the media. The all-star team was the one that was getting the money.
you about the state of the league kind of before COVID, or like I guess what you would call the downfall of the TCRD?
Yeah. Why it fizzled, or why there was a bit of a downturn is a tough one, right? Like, it is, I feel like it was, like the fall of Rome. You can't pick any particular thing that made it happen, but quite a few small things probably made it happen.
I think it was a conversation that roller derby was having at the time, that I don't even know what the right wording is, but to be like a true roller derby person, you had to want a certain type of roller derby. There was this switch. Even if you look at the uniforms at the time, like they went from being like cut up t-shirts and like safety pins, which were not safe, but anyway, but like a lot of kind of like DIY, like skirts, like we had skirts and belts and fishnets and all that kind of fun stuff. And it started changing very much into the more athletic wear. And I think what was sad was that roller derby as a sport started saying that the other type of roller derby was something to look down on, and it wasn't respected anymore. And that in order to be someone that played roller derby, you had to start looking a certain way and acting a certain way.
I understand that at some point we decided we hated people asking if we were out there just clotheslining people. And we wanted roller derby to be seen as an authentic sport, but I think we leaned too far that way. I think that it's great that we have uniforms now instead of tutus and fishnets, but at the same time, I think we did lose something.
There was no place anymore for recreational roller derby. There were attendance requirements. There was this idea that like you're in the house teams, but you're just there to train up to be in the all-stars. And when we start separating it out and putting like, this is better and this is worse, that's when the sport and the community crumbles. And this is what happened in roller derby in general, is the pyramid started losing its bottom layer. And so what we were left with as a sport was we had this intense focus on the like upper athletes, but they didn't realize that the only reason they could end up here is because they had this huge base of like community and recreational play. And I think that changed the sport, it changed roller derby, it changed the community, it changed the culture, it changed Terminal City in a way that honestly, I feel like set us up to eventually fail and to eventually die.
Skaters were realizing how much it took to put on what we were doing, and that maybe it was too much for their lives. And I think a lot of skaters realized that all at once, unfortunately. We had one really busy year where we hosted a playoff tournament for the WFTDA. So that is sort of the biggest tournament you can host in roller derby. We hosted here at the Richmond Oval. Amazing, and it was amazing to be able to watch our local skaters play and like go out and be a part of that. But also that all-star team took that as an opportunity to retire, essentially. Like, they played their biggest game in front of a home audience, in front of their home league. They came within 1 point of beating Philly, like probably one of the best games that they ever played. And like literally 2 weeks later, about 15 of those 20 skaters retired and did not ever return to skating. But then we don't have any high-level skaters sticking around to coach the next generation. And I think a lot of roller derby leagues have struggled with exactly this. And I think if you look at statistics, probably a roller derby career on average lasts 5 years, and most of those 5-year careers do not include training folks below them. But it is something that was kind of a blind spot for a long time. And so I feel like for Terminal City, I think that was our downfall, is that our all-stars left and we didn't have the next all-star team ready to take their place. And then just the flow-on effect from that as it came down.
We had made the sport too difficult to be part of. We had started turning people away from the sport. You know, when we started asking people to do, skills testing, to get into the sport, but we didn't provide the programs to get them to those skills. From a grassroots sports, it had become elitist, it had become difficult to be part of, it had become difficult to even compete in because of the, how many officials you had to have. The rule books changed, the rule sets changed every year. So like you'd figure something out one year, then you had to adjust it the next year. Like it was the sport itself, the structures was not helping it grow, and it was actually making it contract.
But the Bad Raps still had 18 players. So the Bad Raps had a team culture where none of us ever wanted to quit. So we quite often ended up having the most veteran skaters on our team. So even after that All-Star team left, we still were the team that had the most strongly skilled skaters on it. None of them wanted to play All-Star. We still just wanted to play together. And I think the other house teams really feel like we killed the league because we didn't want to split ourselves up. So I think there was some hard feelings against the Bad Raps, but I think the Bad Raps are still the only skaters that you see left around training Terminal City. We were the ones that actually loved roller derby, is the way that I felt about it anyways. Because we would have done anything to keep playing it together.
The challenge is, that I find, is to separate that personal passion from the sport itself. And I think what's challenging is that the people that are most passionate about it sometimes come at it from their own place of wounds and own needs for healing. I would say this for myself, absolutely. Then we put our needs and healing at the center of then what we try and do within the sport. So I feel like roller derby is the sport where we're all kind of wounded and trying to heal together. I think for roller derby to flourish, it needs strong leaders, but strong leaders that have done the work on themselves first. But that stuff ain't easy.
So the state of the league in 2018, I was kind of oblivious when I had first joined because I was just like, how do skates? And as I was learning to skate, I learned more about roller derby and more about the league. And people were just sort of dropping off as I was going, like people would just not come to practice the next practice.
I joined Terminal City in 2019. The league was small. At practices, there were maybe 10 folks showing up at that time.
So I think Terminal City had a handful of refs and 3 skaters left in 2020. During COVID, COVID pretty much annihilated roller derby across North America. I would say anyone that had been playing for more than 5 years, hit their expiry date and checked out.
But yeah, for the league, that was kind of a death knell almost, because we couldn't meet up. People were already like deciding whether or not they wanted to continue playing, and this was sort of like an omen, I guess, that was like, nah, I can just go on and do other things with my life.
And so during that 2 years, just that last squad of skaters that were still hanging on there in 2020 disappeared, basically. I know that at the time I was worried that roller derby itself, like even the WFTDA, might not survive. So yeah, I think it was absolutely in my mind that I might not be playing roller derby again.
Like my first meeting was on Zoom. I didn't meet in person until like in the spring when vaccinations started happening, so spring 2021, and we were like, let's go meet in person, and we skated outside, but it wasn't even derby, it was just like meeting to skate.
And even prior to the pandemic, they had been considering actually merging with another local league called Greater Vancouver Roller Derby Association, or GVRDA for short. And so we had actually been in talks about this sort of merger before the pandemic struck.
And practicing with them for that period of time did allow us to actually continue the league. So that was great. And then the league voted to not actually go through with the merger.
I was one of the no votes on the merger. The reason I was a no vote on the merger was because I thought that the Greater Vancouver area needed a place for the WFTDA gender policy, which GVRD does not follow. So yeah, in Greater Vancouver Roller Derby Association is open gender, which means that it includes cis men as skaters. And I felt that there still needed to be a space for the WFTDA gender policy, which excludes cis men.
There are folks that are comfortable playing with men, and there are folks that are not comfortable playing with men, and that still is the difference between TCRD and GVRDA. And I think it's great that we have space for both, because absolutely there should still be room for women's roller derby leagues that, you know, have their own thing without men there.
After the merger failed, I might be exaggerating, I don't remember exact numbers, but very few people were around. And a few key people left almost immediately because of life events. So yeah, it was a tough time.
We were in real danger of losing the league for a short period of time.
There was just still also a core group of people who really, really wanted the league to exist, myself included. I found the community itself very, very important to me, and I really did not want to give up on the league.
I don't know if you know how tough the academic job market is, but when I went on the job market, I didn't apply to any place that didn't have roller derby within 30 minutes.
That's like our very important part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
our life.
Yeah, like you're supposed to apply to everything because it's that tough, but I didn't do that.
Terminal City Roller Derby, I think one of the reasons that it is so dear to my heart is because it was the first sporting space that actually let me feel welcome. I had spent a very long time in the closet, and when I first joined TCRD, I was still in the closet. And being surrounded by so many wonderful folks that were part of the LGBTQI community, who I felt would not judge me for who I was, really made me feel welcome. And I think one of the main reasons that I was able to come out in 2020 actually, so only 4 years ago, was because I got to spend so much time with so many wonderful folks around me. It really made me want to try and continue to facilitate that space. That is one of the main drivers that I had to try and keep TCRD alive. I wanted that space for everybody.
Hunky stepped up 2 years in a row to be our president when there was no one else willing to do it. He put his blood, sweat, and tears into making sure this league could continue, even when it seemed unlikely that the league would survive.
After the merger trial, TCRD was left in a very precarious position. There were very few members left, but there were a couple of folks who had come to Vancouver recently who were interested in trying to help us rebuild, and those are Willow Whips and Easy Break Oven.
After COVID, we had the lovely Whips show up in town and decide that she wanted to help us rebuild here at Terminal City.
Things started turning around because Whips made a plan, which was something we hadn't done. We were just trying to survive, right? We were just in survival mode, like, I don't know, recruit people, we need money, I don't know what to do. But we didn't have a plan, and that's what Whips had, was a plan.